Hi friends, Mindy here. I am going to be showing you my setup for the newest kit from Bythewell4God, which is called A Glimpse of Heaven. I am going to be doing a traveler's notebook similar to this one that I did for In the Night season, where I just kind of turn this into almost like a junk journal style traveler's notebook. So I'll be adding some papers in and taking some of the paper that's in the traveler's notebook out. You can see it gets pretty chunky by the end, which is the way that I like it. But so the first thing that I need to do is disassemble this traveler's notebook. These are stapled together, so I'm just taking a little pokey tool here and opening these staples up, and then I'll pull them out. If you had a staple remover, that would be helpful. I do not have one, so I'm just using this little tool, which works fine. And then just being careful to kind of not make any really big holes in the spine with those staples. So I have everything taken apart, so now I can start adding some things into my traveler's notebook. So one of the things I want to use is this craft bag that has this really cool window in it. And so I'm just going to tuck this in here, and it will work as a pocket. Well, two pockets really. And so I'm just kind of rearranging, and I'm sorry for this, but we got to be just constantly rearranging and moving things around, and I hope that's not too confusing. But I have here the pattern papers, which these are the 6x8 papers that you can get that coordinate with the kit. And so I'm looking through here to get the patterns that are not only vertical patterns. I need ones that when I fold it, it's not going to look like it's sideways. I mean, you could technically do that, I guess, but that would kind of make me a little crazy. But I mean, if that doesn't bother you, you do you. But I just couldn't have the patterns being sideways. That would just mess with my my head. So I picked a couple of the patterns that are really universal, and so I'm just folding them in half, and I'm just tucking them in between the paper that comes with, like, in the actual devotional here, or traveler's notebook, sorry. And so I'm just adding those in, and they'll just kind of be little tuck spots, or they may end up being pockets. They're just really kind of a jumping off point to do whatever I feel like doing basically at the time. So again, I'm just rearranging and arranging. So on this front page here, I have decided I'm going to add these beautiful hot air balloons. And what I'm going to do is I'm only going to glue down part of it, and then I will just fold it back on itself. And I was trying to decide which paper I wanted, because I love this paper so much. So this is going to be like the first page, at least that's what I think at this moment in time. So I'm just running glue across the top and the bottom. I'm leaving a pocket. So I just adhered this, and then I'm folding it back on itself so that it's flush with the edge of the paper. And I'm using a bone folder here to kind of get a really good crease. This paper is really good quality. It's really thick. So you just kind of want to be careful when you're folding it so you don't crack it, or it can just make it look a little funny on the ends. I don't know how to explain it, but so I'm just using a bone folder to get a really nice edge on there. And then you can see I made it, because I only put glue at the top and the bottom, it made that so I could use it like a pocket. And again, here I'm just kind of moving things around. I don't want two papers next to each other that are like the same. So I don't want two of the little folded pages right next to each other. I'm trying to give just a variety. So the next thing that I'm doing is I want to use this beautiful lined paper that looks like notebook paper. And as you can see, I've already read through the devotional one time. This is just part of the process that I go through. And I have taken the flashcards and journaling cards and kind of assigned them to the proper day. They're what's clipped to them right there. And so what I've done is I've gone through and looked at which day kind of has a lot of journaling or scriptures, because I know I'm going to be doing a lot of writing. And so what you saw me do there is that page that I just made with the folded edge, I took that out and put in just a piece of white. And now I'm going to basically do that same thing, but with this lined paper. And I'm going to be putting it on a day, I think it falls on like day 2 or 3, where I know that there's a lot of scripture references. And so I'm going to need as much room to write as possible. If you've watched any of my videos, you know that I like to include all of the scripture references whenever possible. So I know that on a few of these, there were quite a few, and so I'm going to need as much room as I can. So I just created that same little pocket. And now I have taken another full sheet here that has, the vertical pattern, and I'm basically folding it around a group of papers. So it's going to fold into that signature, and that's just going to leave a flap again, but it's going to be on the inside of the signature instead of on the outside edge. And so what that will allow me to do is, if I want to, I can use it to adhere tip-ins or journaling cards, or I can adhere a full sheet of paper and basically make like a tip-in of one of these other pattern papers. So I'm not really sure at this particular moment how I'm going to do that. So I'm just leaving that until I decide. So it's part of the beauty of having this kind of, this way I can move things around and put things in. And here I decided, because where this falls, it's going to be talking about heaven. And so I really wanted to use this cloud paper. So I'm just going to glue this cloud paper onto that little flap, and it basically makes it like a little tip-in or an extra page. And then here, I'm trying to decide what I want to do with the excess paper. I don't know if I want to fold it in and create a little tuck spot, or fold it on the back side and create a tuck spot back there. And I just keep going back and forth. And so since I can't decide, I'm for right now just going to leave it, and I'm going to move on and work on something else. So I'm just kind of comparing the pages that are in my blank traveler's notebook here with the actual devotional, and trying to make sure that on days where there's a lot of scripture, I'm going to have enough room to include it, or ways that I can add in pockets and journaling spots and different kinds of things to get all of that content in there that I know that I'm going to want. So I have pulled out another one of these papers because I just love this notebook paper so much. And I'm trying to decide which way that I want to put this. This is kind of, I think this falls almost right center in the book. So this is in the very center of the spine, and I'm folding it on the left edge this time, and that will put the flap in the middle of the book instead of on the outer edge. And again, that will allow me to add a paper to it, or a tuck spot, or create a pocket, or just gives me some versatility because I'll have that extra little flap. Or if I want to, I can just glue it down, and it can be a decorative spot on the other page. So, but until I know for sure how I want to do it, I'm just going to kind of leave it open for now. So I'm folding that again using my bone folder to make sure I get a good crease. And now I'm just going back through and flipping and still trying to decide what I want to do with this page. You still can't figure it out, so I'm just leaving it and kind of going through here and making sure I have a good variety and different interesting things to work on. And now I'm getting ready to bind this together. And there's that one page that's just sticking out a little bit too far, this notebook paper. So I'm just making sure I have it really tucked into the gutter. Is what that part is called. And now I'm getting ready to bind all of this together and punch my holes. And so because I have these short pieces and the little craft pocket, I need to make sure that when I bind them, I make sure that those pieces get 2 holes in them to keep the thread in it, so that they don't fall out. It just keeps it more secure in there. You wouldn't want it just kind of hanging by one thread. You could do it, but it's more likely to fall out of your book. So I'm just going through making sure I can kind of eyeball it and make sure that I'm going to get 2 stitches in each one of those shorter pieces of paper. So I just added some little clips here. It's really important when you're doing this to keep everything as close to the spine as you possibly can. So I have a heavy duty awl. That's the one that I'm using today because I'm going to be punching through all of this at the same time. So I am using my ruler, and I'm just going to make a really light pencil mark on the inside here because where I'm going to punch the holes. And so I'm going in the middle and then an inch in from each of the top and the bottom edges. And it's, it's not precise, but it's going to make a little book. So, and again, before I really punch those holes, I want to make sure that all of these papers are going to be secure. And so now I'm just using this awl and holding everything really tight together. And I'm going to go through because I want to make sure that when I get this hole all the way through, that it's right on the edge of the spine, right in that fold. And so I'm just kind of watching it as I go just to make sure that I'm poking in the right spot. And then I'm just using that awl right there as a placeholder for just a moment. And I'm going to get out my thread. And what I'm using today is, instead of using jute, I'm using a waxed linen thread. And I like the waxed linen because it really slides through all of the different textures and papers really easily. And so typically for a pamphlet stitch, which is what we're going to be doing here, you want like 2.5 lengths of your book. That's about how much thread you need. But for me, for today, because I want those threads to be really, really long, I think I did like 4 lengths. So that's going to give me quite a bit of extra, but that's what I want. And then ordinarily I would start on the inside and go to the outside. That way those tails are on the inside of the spine, but I actually want them on the outside of the book. So I'm doing it the opposite way. I'm starting on the outside and going to the inside, and then I'm going to go up to the top, or you could go to the bottom. Either way, it doesn't really matter. And then you go to the opposite hole from the outside, and then going back into the middle here. And then I'm going to go back into that middle hole and go back out to the outside of my book. And it's just really important here to not split those threads when you're coming back through. It can get a little tricky, but you don't want to have that needle go through and split the thread that's already there, especially with waxed linen thread. You don't want to do that. So now I'm just pulling all of the excess to the outside, and I'm going to spend a minute here kind of fidgeting with this thread just a little bit, because I want to get it so that my tails on the outside are the same length. So I'm just kind of maneuvering the thread around. I took the needle off there to make it a little bit easier. You can see I'm just kind of adjusting and everything, and that's the great thing about the waxed linen, is it slides through there pretty easily. So I am going to tie this. I've got my pieces to the same length, and I'm just tying a knot, and just make sure that each of the tails is on either side of that long piece, and then you're basically tying a knot, and that long thread is going to be in the middle. And the good thing about waxed linen is that it's kind of almost sticky. It'll stay really well, so you don't have to feel like your knot is going to come loose. So I'm back to this piece again, and still the fold thing is just not working out in my brain for this one. So I'm just going to end up trimming that off. And I don't know why I did this way, but instead of just using my scissors there, I decided to pull out my craft knife. But whatever works. I'm just trimming off that extra page, and I'll save that and use it somewhere else. So I've gone through here, everything is stitched in place, and then I realized that one page I had taken out, I forgot to put back in. and it's the one paper that I really, really love with the hot air blues. So I need to find a way to make it work. So what I decided to do is this little flap that was created from that one page. I'm just going to use that to create basically a tip-in for this one piece of paper, which is actually, 4 sides because it's a folded piece of paper. So I'm refolding it so that it matches up really well with the edge, and then I'm just going to adhere it to that flap. You can see that back side of that paper, that second side, is going to adhere to that little flap with the butterflies. So I'm going to put a lot of adhesive on here with my glue gun, and because I really need to make sure that this is going to stay really well, because that's all that's going to be keeping this portion in this book, because it's not actually going to be bound with the thread because I had already finished binding. Now, technically, I could have, taken that thread out and rebound the book, but I did not do that because I did not want to keep going in and out through those holes. It just opens them up too much, and then it's harder to keep a really good tight stitch, and so it just makes it a little bit flimsy. So that's why I just decided to create a tip in there, and I forgot, I thought I was recording and I didn't, so I'm just going to show you really quick. This is how that ended up looking. This is the piece I cut off there when I glued that piece in and kind of made that tip in. So I'm just kind of flipping through here and checking, seeing if there's anything that I want to add. These are all going to be pockets, and you can see I put things at different heights, some kind of down toward the bottom and some toward the top, and then I created pockets and little tuck spots and little flippy parts, and I just like to have a lot of interactive elements, especially in this kind of junk journal style book that I'm creating. And this is how I will be working through A Glimpse of Heaven from Bythewell4God for this month. And you can see I have all these papers still left over, and I will use those for various things within this devotional, or within my traveler's notebook, similar to how I did it for in the night season. So you can see that's it's going to chunk up like that. And then you can see here I left those tails really, really long, and then I'm just going to use those actually as a closure for when this book gets really chunky. Right now they're kind of long, and I may have to trim them down later, but for now that's going to work for me. So anyway, if you like this video, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and until next time, bye-bye.